With your approval, members will consent items number 2 and number 8.
You said 9:20, it was 9:15, I thought you were giving the date.
Yeah,
That's
all
why
right.
we
That's,
did
oh,
that.
that's wrong. That's city time. I forgot. It's 9:14. Okay, and if
Wait. When I say
item 2 and 8.
Okay.
Item 2 will be approve the CAO recommendations,
8.
and item 8 will be note and
Yeah.
file.
Right, sir.
And on items 6 and 7, if you have any questions, we'll call them. If not, we'll go ahead and note and file those as well.
6. Andy, I have a question on 6.
6, we'll call 6.
7's okay.
Sparks? No. Okay, we'll call 6, so we'll take number 7 and note and file that as well as consent, and go to item number 1. Mr. Clerk?
Morning, John White. Item 1 is the Emergency Operations Board's 2008 Sayre Fire Emergency Operations Center Activation After Action Corrective Action Report.
Good morning.
Morning, how are we doing?
I'm Rob Freeman from the city's Emergency Management Department, Operations Division. The report before you today concerns the activation of the city's Emergency Operations Center to support field response for the Sayre Fire. And we identified a series of corrective actions to take based on our review of how things went in the EOC. The last page of this document actually is a table that identifies those 7 specific items. The National Incident Management System requires that we not only do an after-action report, but we identify specific corrective actions, and then we track those. And EMD is the city's lead agency for those EOC-related items. This report has already been approved by the city's Emergency Management Committee and then the Emergency Operations Board. Following the board's approval of this report, we set forth to correct the actions that are identified, and we're actually well on the way towards completing most all of these. But we always want to bring these items before the City Council's attention and answer any questions that you might have or keep you up to date on how we're doing to correct things that we know we can improve.
Okay. First question is, and my district and Mr. Alarcon's were the 2 districts hit hardest by these fires, evacuation procedures for disability, disabled people. That was one of the recommendations. What are you doing on that front?
We have formalized the role for the city's Department on Disability into our EOC structure. We've actually created a position in our mass care branch specifically for that city agency. They are the subject matter expert, so that as the EOC looks at, again, coordinating activities, not directing field activities, but assisting the field, but as we look at evacuation activities, establishment of shelters, other things that affect mass care, that this expertise is brought to bear and any decisions made take those considerations into account with our EOC action plan. So they've been very responsive to that, and we look forward in future drills, exercises, and activations to having an enhanced role for the Department on Disability and the EOC.
Excellent. One other concern I had is in the Chatsworth area where we have a lot of horse keeping. There seemed to be a lot of confusion this time that I hadn't seen so much in the past fires, and that was that people that were responding with trailers to help evacuate horses were not allowed through police lines. And then often what happened was when they got to the official evacuation point, Pierce College, it was already full. And a lot of people were just taking spray paint, painting a number or a phone number on their horses' posterior and letting them run loose because they had no place to leave them. So there seemed to be a lot of problems in the evacuation of large animals this time. That I had never seen that before. Has that been brought up at all? I didn't see that in here.
We've also enhanced the role of the city's Department of Animal Services in the EOC. They are now also a formal part of our mass care branch, and we're erring on the side of always having them in the EOC. In the past, they would be brought in if necessary, and they directed a lot of activities from the field. That sometimes leaves the EOC not up to speed on what's going on, and we can't weigh in to try to solve those types of problems. So they're now a full-time member of that mass care branch so that we can see where these problems might be occurring and be very proactive in finding solutions so those things don't occur.
If you take this suggestion back for me, Ben, we have a lot, there's an automatic kind of almost a club within the horse keeping community that goes all the way across the rims of the valley into Mr. Zines' district, out to Ms. Grill's district. They respond automatically without being called then they get stopped at the police lines. If we could issue fire line passes for those people bringing trailers in for evacuation purposes, so they can just get in, get the horses, and get out, it might be able to expedite that problem, because the average copper on the street doesn't know who can come in and who can't come out. If they have a pass from the fire department that says they're allowed to come in for evacuation of animals, if they have a trailer, then I think that would help that system a lot, because the cops are doing what they're told to do, and that is block the streets and don't let anyone pass. So that could smooth that process, and I appreciate you for bringing that
We'll
back
be
up.
glad to take that back and work with the Department of Animal Services and certainly reinforce that in the planning and training activities we do so that we build those procedures into the
Excellent. Thank you very much.
next event.
Mr. Parks?
I just had one question. Do we follow through on whether all of the people that were displaced now have permanent residency?
Eric Baumgartner's here, who's dealt with the recovery aspects from the Sayre fire. You might be able to address that better than I.
Those were displaced from the Oak Ridge Mobile Home Park specifically. The Oak Ridge Mobile Home Park has been reopened as of May 4th, and they are in the rebuilding process of putting new mobile homes on the property. Those who have elected to return to the park are still in hotels awaiting the purchase of their new mobile homes and their pads being prepared for their new mobile homes. Many of the residents, though, did end up taking their insurance payout from their mobile home damage and ended up purchasing a mobile home in another park in the valley, or ended up taking that money and actually purchasing a fixed structure home.
And what did you say it opened as of what now?
As of May 4th, that's when the park was turned back over to the owner, and the residents were allowed to start moving back in as the owner finished any renovations for new code improvements for the new mobile homes.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Zine?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The issue of horses in Pierce College, we had some meetings with the Pierce College representatives months ago before the fires, and the issue was, how do we coordinate? Does the EOC have any coordination with Pierce College or LAUSD when an incident of this magnitude occurs?
Yes, sir. We have a permanent spot for the Los Angeles Unified School District in that same mass care branch. So
What about the community college district? Because the Pierce College falls under the community college board.
yes, the city's Department of Animal Services and their point person in our mass care branch, they are a liaison to all of those facilities, the Griffith Park Equestrian Center, Pierce College, any of the facilities that they use. They really are the subject matter experts in the EOC to try to make sure that none of these problems occur. Having a formalized role for them, putting that as part of our action planning process allows the supervisors in the EOC to make sure that this happens. But very happy to follow through if there's specific concerns, as you've mentioned, that we'll need to work with Animal Services on to make sure that those lines of communication are well established.
Well,
They regularly work with Pierce College.
We were working for months with the fire department, with Pierce College, my office, anticipating that a major incident would occur where we had to put animals, and they take other than horses, but there wasn't really a formalized process. It was just word of mouth, drop them off at Pierce College. And as Mr. Smith said, they filled a capacity. Once they filled a capacity, then there's Hanson Dam, and there's Sepulveda Basin, but I don't know if they ever formalized the process with Pierce College, because there was a request for some equipment, whether the city was going to provide it, whether it was going to be provided by the community college district, but they have 400-plus acres at Pierce College, and they have corrals, but somehow we need to formalize, because of the Chatsworth area, the area of Calabasas, Agora, where they have a lot of horses, and they use Pierce College also as the major sanctuary when something occurs, the Topanga Canyon area. So I'd like a follow-up to find out if there was ever any formalized document for emergency operation with Animal Services, and the key was to provide a shelter for the animals, not only horses, but when you start going through the valley and Chatsworth and some of the other areas of my district, you'll find a lot of animals other than dogs and cats and horses. So something needs to be included in there so people will know how to get them there. And as Mr. Smith said, at the points where the roads are blocked, even if you have a trailer, the officers are going to turn you away unless you have a pass. Something needs to be established where they have a pass that's given to them, maybe a background check, whatever the case may be, just to make sure that they can have access. Public Utilities gets through the fire, police lines, reporters get through, but if you want to rescue animals, you don't get through. And the officers are directed to keep people out. So that needs to be clarified.
We'd
And
like
with
to
the
carry
summer
that back.
coming and no water, it's just a matter of time till something else happens.
We'll be glad to carry that back and to report back to this committee.
Thank you.
With that, thank you very much, and that will be noted and filed with sent to council. Item number 3.
Item 3, see a report relative to the fiscal year 2009-2010 staffing plan for the Proposition F Fire and Animal Facilities Bond Program.
Good morning, council members. My name is Ramon Soto. I'm with the CAO's office. In late May 2009, the Proposition F Administrative Oversight Committee approved the staffing plan for the Prop F Animal and Fire Bond Program for 2009-10, and it provides for 28 positions across 6 departments. 26 of those 28 positions are going to be continued through the Personal Authority Resolution, which will be considered by the Personnel Committee and the Council under separate cover. 2 positions, however, cannot be authorized through the Personal Authority Resolution, and that is what is before you at this time. So we have, excuse me one second, I need to turn off my cell phone.
I told you not to call me here.
I apologize.
All right.
In the Animal Bond Program, we need to add a senior civil engineer, and in the Fire Bond Program, we need to add a civil engineering associate 3. The reason that they can't be put in the Personal Authority Resolution is because the Personal Authority Resolution is only used to continue classifications that have been previously authorized. In this case, these are positions that are actually being downgraded because the bond program is fairly mature now. We've completed 17 out of 21 fire bond projects and 7 out of 8 animal bond projects. And so we actually are able to downgrade certain positions that were formerly at a higher level. And so the senior civil engineer in the animal bond program actually replaces the principal civil engineer. And the civil engineering associate 3 position in the fire bond program would replace a higher level senior civil engineer. So this is all within the framework of reducing positions as the bond program is being completed.
Okay. Those 2 engineering positions, could they be utilized by positions and reductions in the regular engineering department in the regular budget this year? Put them over into those jobs? Or I don't know if there were any positions. I know there are deletions in the budget. I don't know if there are any eliminations.
I know that the Bureau of Engineering is doing everything it can to utilize regular positions in areas where they can be paid for from non-general fund bond sources.
Okay. So theoretically, we could do that, hopefully.
Yes, yes.
Very good. Okay. Mr. Zine?
I just find it interesting. One day we're doing furloughs and layoffs. Next day we've got a bond measure where we're putting people through. There is absolutely no consistency. And what troubles me is we're making a reduction of over 2,000 city employees. We need to look at those 2,000 city employees and see who can be relocated before we start looking at something like this, because the right hand continually doesn't know what the left hand's doing, and it sends out a wrong message when we do something like this. We need to take that existing workforce of over 40,000 city employees and figure out who can do these jobs. I find it continuous. We talk out of this side, and we talk out of that side, and there's no connection. We need to bridge that to make sure anyone who's going to be displaced, and that's the concern. We've reduced the number of projects. Many of them are complete, a few to remain. But, I mean, this is contradictory to everything that we've been talking about when it comes to personnel reductions.
This will be in your committee as well. However, I believe that this is wholly consistent with what we're doing on both sides. In my view, there's no inconsistency here. We are, as I indicated, reducing positions in this. Right. And I also need to point out to you the following, that positions that are authorized by resolution authority in the general obligation bond fund programs are off budget. So this is, every year we provide the appropriate position authorities through the personal authority resolution under a resolution authority, because they are not on the budget. However, in recognition that positions need to be utilized to carry out the purposes of the bond program, it is done under resolution authority. And we are reducing positions, and these positions are needed, and they're authorized by resolution.
And they're authorized, but reality is just the economic situation. How many projects are currently near completion? Because I know that talks about construction. How many are near completion?
Yes. Of the fire bond programs, there is Fire Stations 21, which is almost completed. Fire Station 94 is probably about two-thirds completed. Fire Station 82 has just begun construction. And in April of this year, the council authorized a new project utilizing savings in the fire bond program. The fire bond program has been very successful financially. In fact, that will be probably coming to the mayor and council to authorize yet another new project utilizing savings.
A new project meaning what?
Well, the fire department has its priorities as to what fire stations would need to be replaced. The bond program originally authorized 20 projects. However, the need for replacement is substantially greater than that. I mean, there's many variable stations.
So you're talking about Fire Station 7, which has already been identified, or in addition
That's right.
to
In
that?
addition to Fire Station 7, we're going to identify another one. So it's going to be 2 whole new projects out of what was originally authorized. So it's a very successful program.
Very good.
And so because of cost savings, they can...
Cost savings, interest, and interest earnings, yes, but basically, I think it's a result of the city's good management of these particular programs.
Okay, and other than fire department, what other projects? Other than the
Okay.
one animal shelter remaining?
As I indicated, there are 4 projects remaining for the fire bond, and they consist of Fire Station 21,
94.
which is, and 94s, and then 82s in Hollywood, plus the new project that was authorized, which is Fire Station 7. And we're in the land acquisition stage on that.
Okay, so any other departments, or is that it?
That would be it. And then for the animal bond program, we've finished 7 out of 8. It's unlikely that we'll have sufficient savings to do another whole new project, but we should have sufficient savings to do some significant capital work or improvements that any other shelter might need.
Now, what about, there's one shelter, I think, in Mr. Parks' district, there's still, that's not under construction yet.
That is in design. That is about 90% design, so the Bureau of Engineering anticipates that we'll be in bid and award on that by late summer.
So that's a new one, and then 82 and 7, so there's 3 projects.
There's 4 fire projects and 1 animal
You
bond.
said 21 is nearly complete.
21, 82, 94, and
92,
7.
Two-thirds complete.
Yes.
So the reduction of personnel, how many do we need for 82, 7, and the new animal shelter? You're talking 3 projects.
So,
New projects, I'm not talking about things that are almost complete, two-thirds complete versus...
so if you have two-thirds completion, that still represents substantial work that's left. But as I indicated earlier, in 2008-9, we have 44 authorized positions.
Right,
And we're reducing that by 16 to 28.
right?
And
But
adding
28
to, or the 16 included?
We're reducing total staffing from 44 to 28. 2 of those 28 are the 2 positions at issue here that require the authority.
So they're included. Right. Any more?
That's it.
All right. Mr. Parks?
Just the same question on both 3 and 4. It just seems as though, even though we're cutting the positions by 16, we went from 44 people to do 28 facilities, and now we have 28 people to do 5 facilities. And it just doesn't seem like that those numbers match up as it relates to the workload. And even amongst the 5 facilities, one is 2/3 finished and one, you say, is half finished. So out of 5 facilities, and we're not adding the one you said they could be considered later, but it just didn't seem like there is significant a drop in personnel as you have in completion of projects.
We closely evaluated, working with the Bureau of Engineering, what the staffing needs would be for the fiscal year. So we do feel that this is an appropriate level. Most of the staff is in the Bureau of Engineering. 9 positions would be for the fire bond program, 4 would be for the animal bond program. Since there's still substantial work to be done in the fire bond program, especially with yet another expected project to be added, we feel that this is an appropriate level of staffing.
I would just ask you to go back and reconsider that before you come to Personnel Committee, because that just seems to be somewhat out of sync with what work is left to be done.
We can review with BOE again what that staffing might be.
Yeah. And just remind them of our continued concern about administrative overhead on projects.
Yeah. If I could point out one final concern about reducing further positions, though, with a caveat that we do feel this is appropriate level of staffing. However, if we do reduce staffing beyond what is being recommended, that puts further strain on BOE in terms of being able to transfer positions that are currently general funded to these areas.
Yeah, I think what we've always had a concern on BOE is whether they're using the bond fund to fund other things. And again, we would certainly want to make sure if there are positions available that we wouldn't want to lay off general fund people and not give them an opportunity for special fund, but the special fund should match the work. And it just seems as though if we could build 28 facilities with 44 people, it just seems a little suspect that we need 28 to do the last.
No, that's not quite true. In fact, we've been downgrading the level of staff over the last few years. We reached a high point in 2005-06 when we had 90 authorized positions across 7 different departments. And so every year as we've been completing projects, we've been reducing the number of staff.
Okay,
and so
going by the notes from the CLA, sure. It says we had 44 positions, we dropped 16 to 28. We had 28 projects at one time, and we're down now to 5.
Right. So that would be an inaccuracy on that part, because we had 89.5 positions when we were at our peak workload in 2005-06, and the 44 positions were only represent the workload that we had in 2008-09.
If you just have them reevaluate that before it comes to personnel, appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay. And one last thing.
I got a couple follow-up. You mentioned downgrade. That was a magic buzzword. Are these 2 positions higher salary or lower salary?
No, they are lower salary than the positions that they replace. That's why.
Say that part again.
The positions that are recommended right now have lower salaries than the positions they're replacing.
Okay.
That's part of the rationale for what we've been doing. We've been, in terms of trying to recognize that we have less projects, and we have, in certain cases, less need for higher level positions. So these are lower level positions.
And just 2 more items. The fire department and some of these new stations put in gas pumps that don't work, or diesel pumps, I should say, and they still don't work. Brand new facilities, the fuel pumps do not work. They haven't fixed it. And we have pumps here at City Hall that were put into City Hall when it was renovated 8 years ago. They still don't work. They're not going to work. And if the fire pumps don't work at the stations to get fuel, that's another issue that needs to be addressed with the Bureau of Engineering with the projects. These are, again, brand new stations, and they can't get fuel at those stations because something's wrong, and they haven't been able to fix it, and it still hasn't been fixed.
My understanding on that, Council Member, is that the Bureau of Engineering has submitted a report. I don't know if it's to your committee or it's probably here to the Public Safety Committee on that. They're in the process of, I believe that they've almost completed the first 3 repairs, and that they've authorized repairs on 4 more. But there is an outstanding report, status report on this that you requested and is pending committee consideration.
And I find this out by going around different facilities. That's how I find this out. Bureau of Engineering has not really been forthright with bringing these to this committee or to the council. We go out in the community, and that's how we find these situations. They should take care of the public safety needs, and putting fuel in a fire truck is part of a public safety need. They're negligent in that arena. When you come to Personnel Committee on this, if you can bring a chart to show the comparison of where you were at 44, the projects, and your new request, because this will be hashed out again in Personnel with me and my colleague Bernard Parks.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Look forward to that opportunity.
With that, we've completed half the Personnel Committee work today, and refer to the Personnel Committee with the recommendation of the CAO. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 4.
Item 4, CA report relative to fiscal year 2009-2010 staffing plan for the Proposition Q Public Safety Bond Program.
Melissa Krantz, Office of the CAO. This is a similar situation. In May of this year, the Proposition Q Administrative Oversight Committee approved a staffing plan for 2009-10 that included 20.2 full-time equivalents. 19 of those are resolution authorities. At this time, council approval is required for 6 of these positions since we're requesting reauthorization for those positions. At the start of 2008-9, we had 44 positions authorized for this program. As the program was coming to a close in March of this year, we were aggressive in destaffing, and we knocked that down to 18 positions. However, in April of this year, council approved 3 new renovation projects, and so we are recommending reauthorizing positions so that Bureau of Engineering, LAPD, ITA, ConAd can begin work for those renovation projects.
Okay. I have 2 recommendations on future, next time we get into these grants. Number 1, put money in the into the bonds for repairing streets around facilities when you build them. It's ridiculous to build a brand-new, gorgeous police station with huge potholes in the street in front of it. It's just crazy. Sidewalks, the same thing.
Like Topanga Station?
Like station in my district, yes. I was floored, and I had to scramble and take money away from projects that were assigned to my district to get that done before the opening, because I didn't want to have an opening with people sitting in the stands right next to the huge potholes. It just was stupid. So we think broader than the property you're building next time. Sidewalks as well. And also I have a report from Topanga Station that because of budget cuts in the Rec and Parks budget, nobody's now maintaining the landscaping in the brand-new station.
And unfortunately, that is common for almost all of our new projects, that Rec and Parks is not fully funded to assume the landscape.
And so
we're trying to address
the point is that Rec and Parks has a new policy that when you build a new park, you must have some maintenance agreements or in the budget somehow. We didn't do that, so now we built these new stations, they have no landscaping.
Right.
So we need to be thinking ahead again that says we have to make a contribution, whether it's the Quimby requirement or whatever, toward the Rec and Parks Department for future maintenance. So we just need to think a little ahead, okay? With that, Mr. Parks?
Same question I had on number 3, if we could, by the time it comes to personnel, if you could just reevaluate the positions that are currently being asked for versus the number of projects that are still remaining.
And I'd like to build on what Ramon Soto had said, which is the 44 positions that we had authorized for this year were not the peak staffing. So we had already been destaffing for this fiscal year, so.
I'll wait for personnel, so I have to repeat myself.
Okay. Well, it never stopped you before, but that's very nice. Thank you. We'll move it then to personnel with the recommendations of the CAO. Thank you very much. Item number 5.
I love you.
Item 5, Board of Police Commissioners report relative to the status of the Police Department's consent decree mental illness project for the period of July through December 2008.
Good morning, Commander Pat Gannon from Detective Bureau. Lieutenant Lionel Garcia from our
Lieutenant?
Yes, sir, Lieutenant.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
The department remains on target with the department's consent decree on mental illness project. Before you today was our 2008 goals, or actually the end of 2008. We remained on target with the one minor exception of a D3 vacancy, a Detective 3 vacancy in our case assessment management program. That supervision is being handled by Lieutenant Lionel Garcia here, and consists of, at this time, of 5 investigators. Our mental evaluation unit is deployed 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. with 1 unit per bureau at least, with a minimum of 4 units during our primary shifts. We're currently stayed at satellite divisions or at 77th Central, Devonshire, and we hope to have Wilshire online here real soon. If you're interested or if you'd like to talk about, we talk about best practices and training programs that are currently in place, and I can turn that over to Lieutenant Garcia.
Good morning, sir. Yes, we've created within my organization a training unit, evaluated what we needed to do to train all our employees plus others within the city, and we determined it was best to create a training unit within our mental evaluation unit. With that, last year we accomplished a number of goals and instituted or created a number of training sessions to help spread the word relative to mental illness. As you can see on the report, we've intervened and trained our dispatchers. We do that on a monthly basis, citywide, and presently we've trained almost all of the PSRs on a citywide basis, all the shifts. We've incorporated Metro SWAT, their CNT, into our training element. They also involved in our debriefings with the barricaded suspects. That didn't occur before. So now they get to meet the individuals, get a background on the individuals, and come to know them in the event the individual engages in that type of activity again. We've enhanced the Watch Commander School, the Detention Officer Academy. We've interjected ourselves in the academies, so we're now training our jailers relative to mental illness. We've started last year an autism awareness program, and so citywide, in all our roll calls, we're talking about autism. We've started a support group within the department, and there are members of the department that are part of the support group that accompany us to the roll call sessions and other training seminars that we have throughout the city. We started a school threat assessment response team training conference. And a matter of fact, this past week, we've trained all of the hospital providers from within the county, and to get a better understanding from them what they do, and from us what we need from them when it comes to intervening in targeted school violence incidents involving juveniles. So that's been very successful. Our community outreach efforts have been expanded, as well as our residential care facility training programs have been greatly expanded by the members of my training unit. So in totality, all of last year, we've trained over 1,000 people and, almost 2,000 officers relative to mental illness in our CNT schools, our CIT schools, the crisis intervention training schools, and all the various roll call trainings that we've provided.
One question I have is, I noticed you had e-learning in here and roll call training. How much of the training was done as e-learning versus roll call?
Roll call training is done on a daily basis. Our officers are required to log the roll call training efforts on a daily basis. So every shift, every officer is hitting a roll call somewhere, and so are my supervisors. The e-learning, that's part of the mandated training from the department, and as those sessions hit our e-learning training publication system, every officer in the city is required to take those courses.
And that's the question I have is, e-learning doesn't require that you really take the course. It requires that you open it and close the file. So if you choose not to read it, nobody knows. You're responsible for it.
You're supposed to.
You're supposed to.
All right.
You're responsible for it. Let's leave it at that. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm concerned. I think roll call training, you got their attention, they're listening, they're there. E-learning, you can open the file, close the file, nobody knows if you ever read it, there's no test on most of this. So e-learning is really an opportunity more than a mandate, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So the question is, how much of this training was done on e-training versus how much was roll call? Was it 50-50?
No.
75-25?
98% of this training is in live sessions.
Like roll call type?
Yes.
Excellent. That's what I want to hear. Thank you. All right. That's Parks.
I was just wondering, is there a plan in the future to add testing on the e-training?
We'd like to, yes, sir, in our next...
They have to hit a certain threshold
Yes, sir, and next phase is working with training division and training group and to incorporate testing into it as opposed to just information gathering. Yes, yeah, very good.
Thank you.
With your, Mr. Parks, are you complete? Mr. Parks, anything else?
No.
With your START program, is there any coordination with LAUSD?
Yes, matter of fact, at the end of this year, around November, we intend to engage in a conference with them. We have a schedule tentatively set somewhere in early August with their threat assessment people, and we're going to incorporate ourselves into their conference to discuss threat assessments and mental illness. We've already talked to all of the universities, the colleges, and the universities local, and they've come from out of state. We've had about 3 seminars so far. Now our strategy is to deal with the private schools and LAUSD. LAUSD is so large, so we needed to evaluate a strategy in order to speak to all the schools. So the best way is to deal with their threat assessment people directly so they can connect us to the right people and the right venues so we can get all the schools involved.
Okay, well, you show 25 targeted school violence cases were successfully you diverted.
Yes, sir.
Does LAUSD have similar statistics? How many?
They
interventions?
should. Some of these cases from the university levels and also from the school levels, high school levels, and maybe 1 or 2 from the junior high school levels. But primarily they're from the university and college level, and we did have a few at the high school levels.
Because with Columbine and some of the other tragedies that have occurred, not only in the States but around the world, it seems to be a continuing subject of significance and importance.
Yes, it is. That's why we started the strategy last year, and we ran with it. And again, as of this past last week, Wednesday, we had a conference to deal with that issue. So we're proceeding with that issue,
Good.
and we want to make it a priority for us to interject ourselves and work more closely with the school district.
So when someone makes a statement, it's interpreted seriously, and then there's some type of investigation.
Yes,
It's not
sir.
just empty words.
Yes, it's all about intervention prevention. If we can deal with the issue at that end before it gets to the active shooter or what have you, we can be successful in stopping these things, because once it becomes an active shooter, that's it.
Right.
You can't stop it. So we've been very successful, and none of these cases nobody's heard of.
They don't hit the news. The only ones hit the news when some
You don't know
tragedy
about these
occurs.
cases because they've never happened, but they were serious in nature, and we did stop them.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That will be noted and filed. Item number 6.
Item 6, Personnel Department report relative to efforts taken by the police and personnel departments for the recruitment and selection of police officer candidates for the period January through March 2009.
Good morning, John Dunlop with the Personnel Department.
And Captain Joe Mariani, Commanding Officer, Recruitment and Employment Division. Good morning.
We have continued our collaborative effort with the Police Department in terms of our recruitment. And in the January through March, the third quarter of this year, we actually exceeded most of our goals. We have a goal of testing 700 per month, and in January, we tested over 1,100, and then in February, over 1,500, and again in March, over 1,500. So it's dropped down since then somewhat, but we've been maintaining over 1,000 testing per month, so it's fairly significant and seem to be doing fairly well.
Well, my question deals with the money. We had created an incentive program for recruitment for LAPD, and seeing the numbers the past few months, and the fact that we've reached our 10,000 goal, and we want to maintain attrition, the question is, do we need to continue the $1,000 reward for people referring candidates to LAPD, or can we conclude that program since money is tighter and tighter every day?
I believe you're talking about the Police Officer Recruitment Incentive Program, or PORIP.
Yes.
And that program is very successful. I believe about 20% of our candidates who are appointed come from that program. And when we survey candidates and appointees, they say that the greatest influence they've received is from someone who's on the job or a friend or a relative who's pushed them through. And that's what that program has done, is it has incentivized for members of the police department or other city employees. And we expanded it to
Neighborhood councils?
Right, neighborhood councils and other organizations so that way they also would be entitled to that
I'm
PORA.
just wondering, with this economic situation, if it's time maybe suspend the program, how much have we spent so far? Do we have a dollar value?
I can tell you that it's funded at $150,000 a year, and last year I think we overexpended. I think we were at $170,000,
Okay.
and this year we're under $150,000 for
So if we were
approaching it.
If we were to suspend the program and divert those dollars to the general fund or to the police budget, since the budget gets tighter and tighter, we're looking at money to come back from the police department to balance the general fund, which is $500+ million in the wrong direction. It might be advantageous to, as long as the recruitment continues. I think the job environment is pretty slow. There's not a lot of opportunities, which may be why, in conjunction with people recruiting, whatever the case may be, it's not like we're really out there trying to find people. People are now coming to us, since a lot of factors. Suspended the budget. Oh, it's already been suspended? Oh, according to this late-breaking news. Late-breaking news from the Eyewitness News Desk.
The bonus.
Or IP was suspended in the budget for 9/10.
They suspended.
That's correct.
I thought they suspended the bonus, not the reward.
The appointment bonus was actually suspended some time ago.
Bonus,
But
we got a stipend for signing, the signing bonus.
That was a $10,000.
right, but
Suspended.
But actually, PORIP is as well. It was in the budget. I forget which item it was, but it was as well. But however, if the funding for next fiscal year stayed in the budget, and that's because we have people who have submitted their nomination cards, and they potentially would have people who would be appointed and would complete probation, which are the 2 points at which they receive.
I understand that, but we can
Yeah.
say from this day forward, since the department's going to have to give back money one way or another, I don't know where they're going to get it from, but there's a hit. Do you know, Mr. Parks, what the department,
It started off at 10%.
10%? And that would be an easy opportunity to say, we're going to surrender this. And if we have recruitment problems, we could always reinstitute it. I'm just looking at ways to save money. And if we were struggling for applicants, when we're not struggling, why would we be spending the money that we could use for something else, since you've got to give back money someplace? Either cut the captain's salary or give us this. The captain says, give us this. So it's just an idea that,
But on July 1, it is suspended. So the
Correct.
money that you're going to see is only those that are in the pipeline, which is going to be what, 30,000, 40,000,
I'm not certain of the number. It depends on if
Yeah.
those candidates are appointed, and then
but it's going to be considerably less than 100.5.
I would hope so, yeah. But
so it is taken care of in addition to the bonus.
correct.
That's what I want to say, is how we appropriate that money to general fund for the other functions that we need to provide. So if it's taken care of, it's taken care of. And if we need to reinstitute it, we can always bring it back. But I think it's advantageous for everyone's benefit that we have the dollars to fund the programs that we need to fund. I don't think we need to fund it anymore. It served its purpose.
Particularly this job environment.
Yeah.
People are going to be knocking on our doors for a change, so. Right. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. That will be noted and filed. And that brings us to the completion of the agenda. But before we leave today, I want to give a personal thanks on behalf of the committee and myself to Sue Stengel for your years of service. You didn't sit up here today. It was your last official meeting. You could have, but we want to thank you for all you did for Mr. Weiss and moving the committee along, providing us information, everything that goes along with that, and wish you your best luck. Thank you. And with that, anyone wishing to speak on an item not on today's agenda, seeing none, the meeting is adjourned.
Like you said, what am I going to do the rest of the life?
Want it?
Newt is going to provide.
Hi.